Hello everyone, this is Remleiz from 40k Theories, and welcome to this newest episode of Adeptus Podcastus. Joining me as always is Michael from Tactica Imperialis.
Hello everyone, sorry about the dead upload schedule.
No worries. And joining us this week is our popular returning guest, none other than the gilded cat himself, ThunderPsyker.
Hello, I'm here now. How are you today?
Apparently he's now a character from Charlie Brown.
Yeah, hello. Welcome to the show. I shouldn't be saying that. That's your right, not mine.
I just also want to point out to everyone listening, if my voice goes a bit weird, I do apologise because last night one of my teeth exploded. And I spent several hours in the dentist chair today, and half my face is numb, and the other half is quite a lot of pain. So I apologise forthwith about this.
I mean, like, you've just got some perspective on how Sylvester Stallone has been trying to sort out, like, acting for a while, so...
Yes. So, in the news this week, there is a lot. So let's start with the big one. Warhammer the Old World.
Yes. I fully expected you to go Black Library Weekender there, but okay, Warhammer the Old World it is. Yeah.
In fairness, I think this was actually a bit of bigger news, let's be honest.
I'll give you that. Just because we're a 40k show, I didn't expect you to let me have the fantasy episode straight out the gate.
I mean,
you might as well.
It's like the sister franchise that, like, for the longest time, 30 or so years, fantasy stood alongside 40k as the two main games that Games Workshop provided. I mean, I apparently around the time that fantasy was, well, not cancelled, but ended, like, supposedly even the Lord of the Rings strategy game was starting to overtake it, but I've only heard that in rumour. I refuse to believe that, to be honest, but hey-ho. I think fantasy deserves its respect, especially if it is going to return with official support.
Yeah, so for those of you who were living under a pile of Realmstone, let me catch you up. Warhammer Fantasy was, and, well, is, the forerunner game to Warhammer Age of Sigmar. It was the original Warhammer. It's older than 40k. It was a more fantasy setting, more classic fantasy, with elves and dwarves, not elves with an A and Duardin and Oryx. It was proper classic fantasy with ranks of infantry, square bases all ranked up. You had maneuvering arcs and movement values were a thing before they were a thing in 40k. The magic phase was bananas and slightly game breaking. Slightly at times. And generally it was basically the building blocks for so much of even 40k. The elves became the Eldar. The Empire became the Imperium. Like, almost one-to-one. Chaos Warriors became Chaos Space Marines. And so on and so on and so on. Fantasy was the original. But it proved to be, for one reason or another, unprofitable and or unpopular. The player base was too small in many areas of the world, and it generally was regarded as being a bit too complicated and inaccessible to new players due to the cost and due to the complexity of the rule set. So they killed it. They did Gathering Storm, but far more dramatic. They called it the End Times, and they blew up the world. And then we got Age of Sigmar in the aftermath. So, Warhammer the Old World is essentially fantasy rebooted. It's the old world. That's what it was called before they blew it up, by the way. It was always called the Old World.
Is that a retcon now? Considering that, you know, on Warhammer Fantasy World it was called Warhammer World, and there was the Old World and the New World, because New World was like Naggaroth and Lustria. Yeah,
the sort of Americas of the setting.
Yeah, it's possible that the Old World, that this fantasy reboot will only be set in the Old World, and the factions...
Dark Elf players.
Well, what I mean by that is that the factions of the New World will be there, but they won't be sort of on screen, possibly.
Well, the Lizardmen had a presence in the Southlands, and the Old World at least, so you can still play as them, but if you want to be High Elves or Dark Elves, you're fucked.
I mean, the obvious way to get around this problem would have been to call it the world that was, because that's the Age of Sigmar name for it, but they didn't do that. Either way, it is fantasy rebooted. We know square bases are coming back. They've made a big deal about square bases being back.
Yeah, that was on their, like, promotional imagery, wasn't it? It was just a picture of a square base, and everyone was going, yes!
And I saw that some other companies have been taking the piss out of Games Workshop for this. I think you saw the tweet from Mantic Games about this. We don't blow up words, we create them.
Yeah.
It was both incredibly clever and incredibly petty at the same time.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether to laugh at them or with them. But
The answer is yes.
The answer is indeed yes. But we should disclaim that much like Adeptus Sororitas, where they announced it miles out, this is not coming for years. So this is going to go right onto the back burner, and they're saying it will probably be about 3 years until we see this done. All they've got so far is the name.
Do you know what this basically is? It's basically Horus Heresy for Age of Sigmar.
That's an analogy a lot of people have made, that the Horus Heresy miniatures game is coming towards not quite the natural end of its life cycle, because it's not.
We're about halfway through.
Yeah. That's always a thing. Sorry, you go ahead.
No, you finish your point.
Oh, I was just going to say, that's the thing, is that the Horus Heresy has always been considered the big conflict, but as it got more of a presence being written and more and more of it was fleshed out, which means there's more for the tabletop to also use.
That's true. And we have more details on what's coming for the Horus Heresy. We'll get to that later in this segment. But a lot of people see this as being Forge World's baby, to give the Forge World team something, not quite to do, when 30k comes to the end of its life cycle.
Something
extra.
A lot of
people... But something else to do. And we know that GW are expanding their production facilities right now. They addressed that when they were talking about the Sisters of Battle pre-order. I'm not going to use the word debacle, but you could certainly use the word debacle.
I just had a thought. If Forge World might be taking over for this, do you reckon they'll have their own version of the Black Books?
Sort of as I think they'll go back to Rulebook Army Book, because they'll have so many factions ready to throw into the game right away, whereas 30k had a baseline, everyone uses the same Legion list, and they add the Legion rules over top. There's too many races in Fantasy to build it that way,
I suppose. I mean, part
I
of me was
them doing.
Sorry.
Because
part of me was hoping when they first teased it, I was hoping they were going to do something, like when Sigmar formed the Empire kind of thing. So you start with just humans versus orcs and goblins kind of thing.
What I was kind of hoping for was, because people were making the 30k analogy, I was hoping, before I heard about Square Bases, my first thought was Age of Myth. Because the Age of Myth is sort of the beginning of the Age of Sigmar. Well, it's the age before the age before the Age of Sigmar. It's the original sort of forming of the mortal realms, Sigmar's coming, the creation of the Pantheon of Order, before Chaos even shows up as...
was that when a dwarf fought a giant salamander?
That was when Grimnir died to Volcatrix, yes. And also there was a lot of stuff involving Gorka Morka, which has been fleshed out quite recently. Nagash and Sigmar were working together. I know, it's madness. But anyway, I was hoping for the Age of Myth to sort of flesh out that time where the empire of humans, elves, Duardin, and even Death were working together against giant god beasts and wild tribes of crazy species never before or seen since. I was hoping for that, but I'm very happy
just the alliance from Warcraft.
Maybe. But I am very happy to see fantasy back, and I'll be fully honest. I'm one of those players who dipped their toe into fantasy, tried it, bought an army, played it a bit, and then walked away from it. Age of Sigmar reinvigorated my love for that half of the hobby, the fantasy half, because it gave me a fresh way to play the game, and I've fallen in love with Age of Sigmar. But I'll fully admit I'm one of those people who probably didn't help with saving fantasy.
Yeah, I also admit that the only time, I have kind of an odd relationship with fantasy in that I had... This is what I'm remembering. I have two older brothers, one of which collected fantasy and one of which collects 40k and fantasy back in the day. And the one who'd only collected fantasy tried to get me into it when I was quite young, and I didn't care for it. And then the other one introduced me to 40k, and then I was far more invested. But then a few years later, I thought about getting an army for fantasy, which to my surprise was Chaos. I was big into Space Marines and Imperial Guard and even Tau and that kind of thing. A lot of the clean slates shooty gun armies. But for fantasy, I looked at all the races and thought, Chaos looked neat.
Well, Chaos Warriors are the best models of that era.
Yeah,
and arguably some of the best models even today.
I fucking loved the way that they looked and kind of their style. I thought they were super neat. But I thought about collecting Chaos, and then when I was like counting my pennies and that kind of thing and look at the armies, I just then went, nah. And and I think that's why I share that similar sentiment to you about the whole, like, well, I didn't do anything to save fantasy, so I shouldn't have really complained about it going, especially given that it was years after the fact. But the thing that really messed with me, or, well, not messed with me, but, like, baffled me, was when Games Workshop then gave the fantasy IP to a lot of game developers, because it was around that time where they just shotgun blasted the IP at everyone who was asking. Ended up, and
look what happened.
Yeah, like they like around the time that happens, they end the tabletop game. Then Total War Warhammer and Vermintide are made, and suddenly put fantasy back on the map for a lot of people. But then the hobby is just gone. It's replaced with Sigmar, and everyone's like, oh.
Yeah, it's a really strange effect, because some would argue that fantasy is only able to come back because of the popularity of Total War Warhammer, Vermintide, maybe the upcoming Chaos Bane has helped with that, and that the video game market has reinvigorated the love of fantasy and allowed fantasy to be reborn.
Yeah.
Others would look at it and say, well, this is why fantasy had to die. Sigmar has proved to be so popular that they can reboot fantasy on the back of Sigmar's success, because Sigmar has got so many more people interested in that side of the hobby again.
Yeah.
So there's many schools of thought as to how this has come to be.
Yeah, like there's so many different ways that 40k has benefited from using other sort of like forms of media, whether it be books or video games and that kind of thing, not to be like the sole reasons that they're still popular, because that's nonsense, but to introduce new blood to it and sort of like reinvigorate interest, like you say.
Yeah.
And fantasy, to a certain degree, took advantage of it in the early days, but like I think in the 2000s there was Warhammer Battle March, there was the MMO, and I can't think of many others beyond that in like the video game space that would kind of bring that along. Whereas 40k, as much as like Fire Warriors ragged on, especially by me, like that introduced people. Fucking Dawn of War definitely did. And like
Space Marine.
Space Marine, god yeah, fucking Space Marine.
Squad Command, I know it wasn't huge, but it was the thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say Squad Command, but then I thought like, well, Squad Command's weird. It was on the DS and PSP. A lot of people owned it, but I don't remember many people saying, oh, I played that. It made me want to spend hundreds of quid on the tabletop.
But, I take your point.
But yeah. But hey-ho. I'm just more glad to see that it's getting a return at all, because good stuff has come out of Sigmar, and I don't believe that the people who like Sigmar should be panned for having an interest in something that other people don't like. But fucking like it's just it felt really harsh at the time for fantasy as a whole to just be gutted for what was effectively seen as a replacement by a lot of people, when it could have been seen as an alternative, or like an entirely separate game. This is not an apt comparison, but it feels like to me, if Games Workshop were like, well, 40k, you know, on its last legs, we're gonna make Gorka Morka's like that. No, never mind. I take that back.
I do know what you mean, though, because a lot of people would have lamented, why did fantasy have to die? Yeah. Why could it have not been that canonically the world ended and Sigmar was born, and then we keep fantasy going? Why did fantasy have to die so that Age of Sigmar might live? Well, obviously it's called marketing. Yep. But at the same time, I think, I don't know. I had a thought and then I lost it. But I'm one of those people who will absolutely celebrate having fantasy back. I don't know if I can commit in 3 years' time when this drops to playing it. I'm not as hyped at the time I thought, oh my god, Fantasy's back. What? But as the weeks have gone on, I thought, okay, that's cool. And I'll look at it when it comes out, and I might dabble with it. But because if it requires me to rebase my armies and go back to squares, I'm not going to do it. I'll buy a brand new army for it, and I don't know if I can commit to that. So I think what they have to do is introduce movement trays for round to square converters. That way, Sigmar players can bring their old armies back across, and Fantasy players can bring their old models forward without having to worry about rebasing and playing both games.
Because that can be done. Just for you can definitely do round bases on squares. Fucking the Game of Thrones tabletop game does that. And I think
War of the Ring did it 10 years ago.
Yeah. I think to some extent, I think Joan of Arc, which is another tabletop game, does it, but I don't quote me on that. But I suppose one thing you could draw the comparison to is, well, not. I'm using weird terms of phrase today. One thing you could argue is, from what I remember, the square bases and formations for original Warhammer Fantasy were very tightly knit, as in, like, models would basically be touching one another. So maybe like round bases would make that harder, because even if you do a converter, there's going to be more space they require. But who knows? Like, I might be completely wrong on that. They might find a way to do it that's great, and if that's the case, then awesome. But
yeah, we've got 3 years now, give or take. So this will be promptly forgotten about by most people. But do you know who I feel most and least sorry for? That poor sap who burned their fantasy army in protest when fantasy died.
I feel like that's on them, because I can.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I can see why they were like, "Oh, this will be a powerful statement to make," but fucking like it. I feel like if a higher up saw that, they'd just be like, "Okay, they've just burnt thousands of, like, hundreds of pounds worth of miniatures.
We already have your money. Why do we care?"
Exactly. Like, it's that. I mean, the fucking gaming industry, like the video game community, already has enough weird ways of trying to, like, protest business practices that just don't fucking work. And I feel like that wasn't one. That wasn't one way to do it, but. Oh, God grief, I'm someone at the door. What the fuck? Like, why are you groaning at me?
Oh, is it happening again?
Alright, fucking Ghost of Christmas Past.
It's me, the Ghost of Streams Past.
Oh, good grief. Well, he's here now. Hello.
I'm not here for long, you know. To plug him. I just wanted to call Rem a bitch.
What? I thought you were going to play Dark Heresy with Scarlet.
My girlfriend. You punk.
Alright. Well, he's gone and done that.
I didn't hear what he said. What did he say?
Well, it wouldn't be a...
He called you a bitch.
Right.
Apparently you punched him through his girlfriend? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I did.
Yeah. 1 second. I'm going to close the door so that we don't get spirits again.
For clarification, I didn't punch his girlfriend. No, I just got her to punch him for me.
Right.
Well, it wouldn't be a ThunderPsyker or Dr. White episode without a raid, so there you go.
Because he got an arena to punch me, so that was a retaliation.
Well, I mean, that just means this war is going to continue for eons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just say I know where you live.
Do you now? I'll fight you. Alright, good.
I can always get the address of Caitlin, so...
Oh, no. Wipes brow. Anyway.
Dear.
But yeah, fantasy, is it obsolete? No. Is it cool that it's coming back? Sure. Is that guy who burnt his army upset now? Probably. But
also, GW memed themselves.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's been the trend for a few years now.
There's a point though of talking about like the whole pointing, like, making a mockery of the cat sat at the table meme.
Yeah.
With Archaon and I think Cetra.
Oh my god, yeah.
But Cetra is back. That will be back because Cetra's in the memes, so we know Cetra will be back. Celebration, Cetra lives. You can stop whining about him being not in RC Arc now. Right, we should probably leave fantasy now because we've got 3 years to wait. Let's move to more modern things, specifically Psychic Awakening, I think.
Yes, that should be released tomorrow. By the time of recording, at least. It was available for pre-order last week, wasn't it?
I think they've staggered this. I think Faith and Fury and the Sisters of Battle were put on pre-order at the same time to then come out 2 weeks later. So I think they're out this week, or are they out next week?
God, I don't know.
I can't remember. Anyway, Psychic Awakening 2 will be along very, 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 very soon, if it isn't out already by the time you're watching this video. But rather like with Psychic Awakening 3, Psychic Awakening 1, GW doesn't seem happy to let the dust settle, let the new lore sink in. Instead, here's Psychic Awakening 3 already.
Yes, and it's going to be Blood Angels and Nids yet again. Oy. It's like, what, the fourth time now? Third time, fourth time?
It's second box. They had Shield of Baal and this.
Even so, we don't need it again, guys. I mean, if you count Space Hulk, that's that another Blood Angels versus Nids game as well.
There's no Necrons there to help them this time. Yeah.
But what they do have is a brand new Primaris Mephiston, and I've heard that Primaris Mephiston is only a thing because no one in the Blood Angels dares let Dante do it.
Yeah, apparently that's in the third book. I haven't read it myself yet, though, so I can't confirm.
I'll say it's not even been revealed officially yet, so that is pure speculation. But I like the idea of Dante is so old that, like, actually, you know what? Mephiston's died before. He'll be fine. You stay as you are, Dante.
Grumpy Grandpa just be sitting going, just let me die.
But while we're on Mephiston, it is an absolutely... I think someone pieced this together. It might have even been you, Rem, pieced this miniature together before the official reveal, as looking like the, what would you call it? The Angels of Death, like, second edition artwork from the teaser images we got. And it's very much in that style, and I do very much like it. It's not my favourite miniature, but it is very cool.
There are two ways you can assemble it. One with the plasma pistol extended, and one where he's actually wiping his mouth like in the artwork.
Yes, I did see that.
I prefer where he's wiping his mouth. He looks like a smug anime girl.
I mean, I guess what I do like is just how much they go for the fucking vampire motif with that right down to the highbrow collar, which has always been a Blood Angels thing, but it's just good to see them roll with it.
I mean, that's a psychic hood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, and the sword looks absolutely flipping evil.
Yep.
Which it should, because Vitaris... I don't remember how Vitaris looked on original Mephiston, but I don't remember it looking that vicious.
In the original artwork, it was pretty much like that.
I'm talking about the original miniature.
Yeah, to be honest, the original miniature, he just looks so derpy, because he looked like he just wanted a hug. Just arms out to the side, he's like, give me a cuddle.
I like the way that he's got the weird the weird hooks at the end of his sword, like a lance. Honestly, it's long enough that you could potentially like use it like one, assuming that he'd be able to get his hands on the edge of one of it without electrocuting himself or burning through his armor. Speaking of which, sorry, I've just made this observation. Is he wearing fucking oven gloves?
Yes, he's wearing big old mittens.
No, yeah, like it looks like he's wearing big old leather workers' gloves.
Those are just gauntlets, but yeah, they do look like mittens.
You got to keep yourself toasty, you know, while you're out being a blood-sucking big boy.
Well, it gets cold when you're one of the undead.
Yeah, exactly. That's for some, it's all that you feel, and honestly, you know, you might as well get a bit toasty. Doesn't matter. Oh, fucking... sorry. That thing has naturally happened again where you search the... Right. Okay, no, this is what bothers me, right? I have searched for Warhammer 40k Primaris Mephiston on Google Images to get the image up. Still somehow Blood Ravens have shown up. Fuck... For fuck's sake! It is the year of our Lord, 2019 AD, and we are still getting the Blood Ravens.
Do you know what
and
this
Blood
means,
Angels mixed
Thunder?
up. What does it mean?
This is a sign that you need to make your Dawn of War 2 video.
I have had signs for the last 3 years! And I have somehow not...
Yes, since episode 7 of this show. It is now episode 84.
I'll do it before 100. You have my word, my promise. You have that...
You have 6 months.
6 months. Cool. I'll do it in 2 weeks.
There you go, you heard it here first.
Very nice.
2 weeks from recording, not from a release, because if you release this in 2 weeks after the fact... If you somehow release this episode 2 weeks after we've recorded it, then I'm going to just... Oh my god.
But speaking of 2 weeks, we also got confirmation that Mephiston and Blood of Baal, which is the name of Psychic Awakening 3, will be available for pre-order on the 30th of November, which is, at the time of this video's release, Saturday coming. So, for context, Psychic Awakening 2 is coming out, we think, Saturday 23rd of November. And that's the Sisters and Psychic Awakening 2 drop. And then on the 14th of December, I've got the 12th on the brain because of the election. Register to vote, people, if you haven't done it already. There you go, there's your PSA for the week. On the 14th of December, 10 days basically before Christmas trading ceases, they're dropping another Psychic Awakening. They're dropping 2 in a month.
Fucking hell.
And we thought it was going to be a quiet December, to cool down from all the madness.
Someone's basically saying, get these out so we can focus on the really big thing in January.
Whatever that is.
Exactly.
I mean, it's probably Slaves to Darkness.
Hey, new releases around Christmas is nice. I'm assuming that they'll... Does Games Workshop typically take advantage of Black Friday, or nah?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say that's...
At least not here.
Like they could, I
don't know what I do in America.
Yeah, because they could do it. They could use it to kind of like sell off their sort of older stock and then have the new stuff out for Christmas present stuff. I don't know. December's I've always assumed was exactly the same way for like every kind of business. But hey ho.
Sorry. Yeah. So that's happening. And there's not much I can say about Psychic Awakening 2 because we haven't got it yet. So we're kind of stuck in a bit of a lull of talking about that. But we do know about the Mephiston book that's coming. They've plugged that, the Dante book. So there's plenty for you Blood Angels fans to get your teeth into. One thing about 40k I did spot, though. Psychic Awakening 2 is bringing in rules for demon weapons. So Chaos Lords and Champions and stuff get access to new demon weapons in the Psychic Awakening book. And if you look at the article, it talks about some famous ones. So it talks about Draknien, Carnage and Slaughter, Argath, the King of Blades, and so on and so forth. Blade of Antwyr, the Axe Morkai, and then one that is, and I quote, redacted by order of the Ordo Xenos. Now I'm going to screen cap because you can see a few bits sort of
This is what I reckon it's going to be. Because it's classified by the Ordo Xenos, it's going to be an alien sword that's corrupted by chaos. Now, since we know that the final Crone Sword has been taken by Slanesh, corrupted Crone Sword?
Certainly possible. And it's very spiky. I'll just put the image somewhere where at least we can see it. Sorry, viewers. And you can see there's a lot of twisted, sticky-outy bits
So very
on
chaotic.
the hilt and the pommel. And it has got a very fine, narrow blade, which is very Eldar-ish. Not exactly... Has it got a curve to it? Not really. But yeah, I think it could be interesting if it is a corrupted Crone Sword. That's a really cool idea.
No, I've got it. I know what this is. It's a Tau gun.
You see, part of me was scared that they were doing it to the Dawnblade and sort of saying that the Dawnblade was a demon weapon, but that was ridiculous, so I shelved it immediately.
Oh, good grief. I mean, if they went that direction, I think that I can't see a very positive response.
No, it is Catan or it is Necrontyr. Keep it that way.
And here we were hoping for the Taurus heresy.
The Farsight heresy, holy shit. Like, enough of the Tau seem to have a mutual respect for the guy that I could honestly see it, but, like...
I was there. I was there the day Farsight killed Almvar.
and
Again.
And sat upon the golden mobility scooter.
Problem is, Almvar's a hologram now, so...
Yeah, which means he just turns it off.
Yeah.
He killed Almvar!
He's just fighting a hologram.
Cuts his way past the ethereal guard, turns to face Almvar, lunges forward, accidentally steps on the holo emitter with his battlesuit, and it goes out instantly. It's like he's vanished in with a poof. It's like, what just happened? You know what? Never mind, I
window
win.
shutting down sound. Ding, 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 ding.
That or like, I mean, horrible reference here. I apologise, but it could be like the final fight of the Last Jedi. Oh dear God.
God, that was a mess.
Farsight is not Kylo Ren.
No, he is not.
The Farsight's actually competent.
Yeah. Farsight actually knows what he's doing and doesn't throw hissy fits over not being
And
able
plus there won't be any, mysterious disappearing daggers.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember that time when Shadow Sun got blown up in the ship and then just flew through space to go back?
That was Farsight.
I was making a joke about Princess Leia.
The thing is, there was that time Farsight flew a cold star out into space to do a boarding action on a space marine ship.
He wasn't completely, just in his normal street clothes.
Yeah.
No,
using the
but
power of plot
still...
convenience because we don't know how to write the character properly.
I mean, the cold star was experimental and pulled off absolute nonsense through its sneaky AI, so
yes,
I
but he
will
didn't
still
just
call
will
plot
himself
convenience.
to just fly back through space.
Yeah.
How do you think battle suits work? They're like haptic interfaces.
Yes, but you're actually using an external device. You're not just
I know.
being so fucking
I'm
pedantic.
sort of using that as a segue. Well, I know, I'm being a pedant, get used to it. But that segues quite nicely with Farsight into, this is the wrong article, into the Black Library Weekender, which happened just after the last episode was recorded. We were very sad about it because we couldn't talk about it. But there was an official final reveal of the Farsight second novel, Empire of Lies. We also got the third Fabius Bile novel, Manflayer, by Josh Reynolds. That's coming. Mm-hmm. We've got Astorath by Guy Haley. So he's written Dante twice, 3 times. Now he's going to write Astorath. So watch that space. He seems quite good at Blood Angels, so watch that space. We get a limited edition of John French's Heresian War novel, Incarnation.
Yeah.
And we also get some really fun stuff for your more Remleiz-minded audience. I'll be polite. Because we've got Ephrael Stern and The Last Chances.
Oh, yes. Yes, Ephrael Stone's actually not only just getting the original graphic novel for Demonofuge in colour, but she's actually getting a full-blown fucking novel.
With the mega edition like Spear of the Emperor and Darkness of the Blood.
And the Gaunt's Ghost novel, which no one seems to remember, apparently.
Well, now's the time for a new novel, if any time at all.
Oh, yeah. And also, we've got the another limited edition of Horus Rising, but this one done in the style of the Siege of Terror limited editions, and it looks fucking beautiful.
How beautiful are we looking?
It really does.
Oh, yeah, with the Lunar Wolves pin on the front. It's done in the style of the Siege of Terror novels. It is very, very cool.
Oh.
But yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff come out of this weekender. So, for example, they're going to do a 20th anniversary edition of 13th Legion to talk about The Last Chances, sort of as a prelude to the Armageddon Saint Last Chances novel, which is very cool.
Yep.
I already mentioned Astorath, Heresian Wars. Fist of the Imperium was officially revealed here, though we'd seen it already.
Next book in the Watchers of the Throne series with the Regent Shadow, and they're actually getting a couple of models as well, the main characters.
Yes, so Regent Shadow is the sequel to Emperor's Legion, I think it's called. And we have a Sister of Silence miniature, who's very cool, and a very wonky custodian.
Valerian and Alea. They're the main characters of this series.
Yeah.
True, the Custodian's arms throw me every time I look at them.
Actually, where's Red Watchers of the Throne? Pretty fucking good book. I'm glad to see they got some miniatures.
Agreed, and Chris Wright definitely knows what he's doing with that lot.
Oh, yeah.
But the big reveal, as much as you'd love it to be the Lionel Johnson novel by David Geimer, sorry Dark Angels fans, that's cool, but no.
It's another Cal Jericho novel.
Yep.
Which is a big deal for me, because I like Cal Jericho.
It is, but the big reveal was Siege of Terror Book 4. Right, we need to talk about this, because Siege of Terror 4 is called Saturnine, and that's cool. Saturnine, I think, will relate either to the battles on Saturn or the Saturnine fleet, is my best guess. So lots of ship combat, I'm going to wager. But it's being written by Dan Abnett.
Okay.
So at least you know it's going to be a good one.
Yes, but the hope and almost the expectation was Abnett started it, Abnett will finish it. We sort of were expecting Abnett to write book 8.
Yeah. Which kind of throws up in the air as who's it going to be, because it looks like the best bet's going to be ADB finishing off the series then.
Which would make sense, because he wrote Master of Mankind, so he's very intimately connected to the Emperor. He also wrote Black Legion, so he's very connected to the Sons of Horus and Abaddon. So he's not a bad pick at all to write it, but just the whole coming full circle with Abnett would have been really cool. Watch ADB write book 5 and we're all thrown through a massive loop.
And it ends with James Swallow. Good work, because, he does Blood Angel stuff, ends with the Death of Sanguinius kind of thing.
I think he might get 7 in that case, and he'll get the Death of Sanguinius. He'll do Sanguinius's battle with Kabanda, a battle with Horus, he'll die, and book 8 is the Emperor in the aftermath.
Wait, Sanguinius dies during the Horus Heresy? I never... Oh.
You know who else dies? Horus.
What? But they can't do that, he's the main character!
This is Warhammer. Protagonists die all the time, except when
except for the titular Warhammer, that has never died.
Because there isn't one. like, at least Fantasy had Galmaraz.
That was the titular Warhammer.
I find that so funny. It's the fact that 40k is called, Warhammer 40k is called Warhammer 40k because it's like fantasy, but science fantasy. There's no one has an important Warhammer except for I don't know, Primarchs, a particularly large orc.
An orc, yeah, sure.
No, the orcs just use chain hammers.
Yeah, chain hammer 40,000. So the orcs, the most important things in the setting.
In fairness, chain hammer is an awesome name for a band.
Now that you mention it, yeah.
Oh, and there was also another thing announced at the Weekender, Warhammer Crime.
Yeah, so this is sort of the slightly less terrifying cousin, but slightly more interesting cousin of Warhammer Horror. Because I would never read Warhammer Horror. Horror is not my thing at all. But
Coward.
Crime thrillers. I'm sorry, I have a particular taste. But crime thriller, that is up my alley. So we've got consulting detectives, corrupt administratum officials, clerks with secrets to hide, very Eisenhorny. I really should not have said that. All right, I'm going to move on now. I was going to start off with a Chris Wright book, which is very nice, a very intimate and relatable tale. So yeah, Warhammer Crime. I've always liked to see what's going on in the underbelly of the Imperium in terms of not the big battles, what else is going on in life, and this fills it out perfectly.
This makes me wonder, because with the Warhammer Horror line, we had the Genevieve novels retconned as being part of the Warhammer Horror line. Will this mean that with Warhammer Crime, the Enforcer novels will be retconned as being part of the Warhammer Crime line? Because that's all about the Arbites.
I can see it.
Possibly.
Yeah.
The Cal Jericho novels could, technically, because it's underhive warfare and gang warfare. Stretch, but...
Just a tad. Also, I'm still rather confused as to why Requiem Infernal wasn't part of the horror line, even though it's just a straight-up fucking horror novel.
Well, if I know. But if it's just a matter of like rebranding these books to say like, hey, they're a part of this like subset of story, then I don't see it being too big of a deal unless they're gonna purposefully try and make continuity between them, which I can't imagine that they would do with this sort of stuff. I guess it does make me very happy though to see Games Workshop have a look at how the setting is able to be translated into lots of different kinds of story and completely embrace that and say, yeah, many people have said that such and such a novel is more of a thriller than it is an action, or this one's more of a crime than it is a horror or something like that. And it's like it's fucking cool that they're able to say, hey, this is a Warhammer horror novel. It's not only set in this disparative, grimdark setting, it is also going to fuck with you. But, yeah.
Also, in regards to the Weekender, I just want to give a massive thanks to Voice of Kosh on Twitter for picking me up a crap ton of books from the event.
Very nice.
Which included the new Mephiston model, the new Dante novel, the new Sister of Battle novel, the new Siege of Terror novel, and a few other Grimrock releases as well, including the thickest fucking anthology I've ever seen in my life. The Dan Abnett one. Literally, it's like 800 pages long with the smallest font you can imagine.
Like 2 pixel?
Not far off.
Mm. Oh, my God. I don't even have particularly bad eyesight, but tiny print just would hurt me. I have no idea how the fuck people are able to read tiny print.
You should just left it there. I have no idea how people read.
I have no idea how... Yeah, I never got it, to be honest. I'm looking at my computer right now, and I gotta be frank, a lot of what's written, I just guess what it says.
And what's next? Counting?
I fucking... Right, look. Counting, there's no point doing it beyond 20. Like, why would you ever need more than 20 of something? You know...
Money?
You see, here's the thing, right? The Emperor had this down, because he made 20 legions, and technically was like, nah, mate, fucking 2 of them are gone, just to give myself some leg room in case I change my mind. It's genius. He got it. He got it. As for why the setting's called Warhammer 40k, I don't fucking know. They botched that one.
Because they wanted it to make it relatable to fantasy.
Warhammer 20.
And then it eclipsed. Well, I remember reading an article about the history of 40k. They wanted to call it Warhammer, like, 4000, but then add another 0 so that it was far enough into the future that they were fully disconnected.
Yeah.
Or something.
I mean, well, that's, like, the calendar for fantasy is quite a lot different from the actual calendar, obviously, because it's, like, a different setting and a different world. It did admittedly freak my little mind out when I first heard that it, like, fantasy was set in the year 25 something, and I was like, what the fuck? No, it's medieval times. It can't be set then. But, I guess if that was...
You just turn to Herkness then for a brief second.
These are the top 10 novels of Warhammer.
Glue.
These are the top 10... Oh, God, he already did top 10 glues. Holy crap. Shout out to Herkness Dragonblade, the only real Warhammer 40,000 YouTuber still out there who's actually willing to stand up to Games Workshop's aggressions.
And the comedy goblins.
And don't get me started, man. Like, 40k should always be taken seriously. Everything, every single part of Warhammer 40,000 is just... pinnacle,
but
right?
Speaking of comedy goblins, that actually segues into the Red Gobbo gets some rules.
If you're playing by Legends rules.
Yes.
Minor caveat, you can't take him to comp. You have to use him using Legends rules.
Oh.
But you can still play him at least.
Indeed, which is absolutely awesome. Also, I know it's kind of a random thing, but are we going to just quickly mention some of the Sisters of Battle miniatures that aren't going to be in the box set that are coming our way? Like, you know, the giant flying blimmin' pulpit.
Oh yeah, isn't that like the special character for the Order of Our Martyred Lady?
Excuse?
Yeah, Jutnith Eruita, or Eruita, however you're supposed to pronounce it, who is standing on a floating pulpit with with 2 to 4 heavy flamers underneath. A ginormous not a Templar cross, but it's not a standard crucifix either. And it's just... I don't know whether I love or hate it.
I mean, it certainly fits in with the flavour of Sisters of Battle, let's be honest.
It does. I think her miniature itself is... I don't know, something just looks wrong about it. Maybe it's just the paint job. But her face and her hair, something just looks... I don't want to quote Ed Miller, but it's just wrong. And I can't put my finger on it. The pulpit's really cool because it's got the names of the founders of the order. So Alicia Dominica and her elite guards in the Daughters of the Emperor, which is really cool, who founded the first orders of the Sororitas. There's something about it doesn't work for me. And I don't know why.
I mean, I think they look fine, but to each their own, I suppose. Then again, like the sisters, in terms of just their general aesthetic and design, do have a hell of a lot of like detail just all over them, and I can understand why someone would feel like a design's kind of cluttered. But hey ho, I'm just glad to see that sick inquisitorial hat back.
Sorry, I don't have a follow-up.
That's fine. That's fine. Sorry. I was just thinking back on those sick witch hunter hats. That was actually a plot point of Dawn of War 2 Retribution.
Dawn of War 2 Retribution was an interesting time.
It was. And a game where apparently like every ending is canon, which doesn't make any fucking sense. But
yes,
nope.
I'd be interested to see your thoughts on it in a video, Thunder.
I will talk about that hat in great detail. Just you wait.
Yeah, one last thing then before we wrap up the news. Titanicus is getting more alternate weapon options for Warlord Titans. So you can now arm your Warlords with paired turbo laser destructors, quadruple Gatling blasters. Yes, you can give a Titan 4 ginormous Gatling miniguns now.
More Dakar.
And you can also give them... you can actually have a proper Dakar Titan now. Yeah. Or Vulcan Megabolters if you want more ammo, less damage. So more Dakar with less punch.
All we need now is 4 volcano cannons.
That would be unstoppable. Well,
and you probably blow up your Titan from the reactor overloading.
Of course, yeah, but it's a sacrifice that must be made so that we can just completely demolish anything in front of us.
And also in regards to new weapons, there's the new upgrade for the radio dreadnoughts.
Oh yeah, this did the rounds as a meme.
Just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, so now you can carry Boreas air defense missiles on the top of your Deredeo dreadnought and take Volkite Falconet or Falconet batteries that allow you to, and I quote, freem pretty much anyone that stands in your way.
Freem.
Freem. I have never seen that before.
I'm guessing it's sound effects maybe going freem, 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 freem.
Freem.
Prove me wrong.
It's like a Pokemon.
Oh yes, and Pokemon Sword and Shield came out. I wonder how many people picked Agumon as their starter.
Right. Just to save this from going too far off the rails, Rem, I saved a book discussion especially for you.
Oh, you star.
Valdor.
Yes, this was actually a pretty decent book. Didn't quite go in the direction I expected, I'll admit, but full of interesting stuff. Basically, this book takes place after the event of Mount Ararat, where the Custodes culled the Thunder Warriors.
Yep.
And we learned some interesting things about the Terran hierarchy at this point, because there are 4 High Lords of Terror at this point who are in charge of the civilian government. Now, I'll try and remember them, because there's the Provost Marshal of the Divisio Arbites. That's the one who's like a main character in the story.
Mm.
But they also mention the Commander Militant of the Imperial Army, Speaker of the Charters Captains, and Chancellor of the Estate Imperium, I think off the top of my head. It's been like a couple of weeks since I read it.
Yeah.
But basically, the Provost Marshal is conducting an inquiry on Valdor because they believe since the Thunder Warriors were still officially part of the Imperial military and still charged with bringing peace to the Emperor's conquest or whatever, that Valdor's culling of the Thunder Warriors was actually illegal.
Oh.
Yeah. It makes sense, they were still officially part of the Imperial military. And it pretty much ends up where there's a few regiments of Imperial army, some mercenaries, and about 24 surviving Thunder Warriors march up to the Imperial Palace, which is still being constructed. Valdor comes out to basically meet with them in full power armor. And, and here's the thing about the Thunder Warriors. They were known as the Legio Cata Aegis. There were 20 legions, and each was led by a Primarch. But these Primarchs were not different genetically from standard Thunder Warriors. It was just a rank.
Now, that's cool. It's great that we know that now about the Thunder Warriors and the original High Lords of Terror that would go on to become the Emperor's, part of the Emperor's War Council, that would then go on to be the Council of Terror, that would then go on to be the High Lords of Terror again, which is kind of funny. But 20 Thunder Warrior legions led by Primarchs?
You haven't got to the best bit yet. We know one name of one of the legions. The 4th Legion was called the Iron Lords, and they were specialists in siege warfare. Where have we heard that before?
The 4th Legion of the Astartes was the Iron Warriors, who were very good at siege warfare.
Kind of hits the whole prototype Space Marine legions a bit on the nose, doesn't it?
Yeah, mysteriously, the 2nd and 11th legions also vanished. How weird.
Sadly, they did not, to our knowledge.
Dang.
They probably just got killed.
I'm not going to sit here and say the Emperor doesn't lack style, but fucking hell, naming conventions at the least?
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
But it was broke because he culled them.
No. Fair enough, yeah.
I know.
But yeah, so when Valdor's meeting with the Provost Marshal and this last surviving Thunder Warrior Primarch, the Thunder Warrior Primarch is basically saying, like, come on, Valdor, even you are not arrogant enough to take on an entire army by yourself. And Valdor is basically...
Watch me.
Valdor effectively says, oh, I'm not by myself. Out pops 10,000 Space Marines.
Excuse me?
You and what army?
And interestingly...
He just got you and what army?
Interestingly, these Space Marines are Dark Angels. And I'm not just saying because of the First Legion. They literally have Dark Angels iconography. They were described as having a winged sword as their icon. Which is quite interesting because, considering Descent of Angels, they didn't actually get the winged sword icon until after they reunited with Lion.
Yeah, the name Dark Angels comes from Luther.
Well, did they describe their colours at all? Because the Dark Angels were in black armour pre-heresy.
It was just... If I remember, they described it as being slate grey.
Slate grey, because that was before, back when the Astartes legions kind of didn't have their identity. It was just grey, wasn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
So I guess they had to show one way of going, oh hey, look, it's the First Legion. How about that? But
but there's some other thing as well, though. When they're describing the gene labs underneath the Imperial Palace and the gene vaults, and there's icons denoting which gene seed is which, and you've got describing a lightning bolt, a winged blood drop, and a wolf.
Yeah, so that's White Scars, the Blood Angels, and the fucking Space Wolves. Or Lunar Wolves, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. But it's hang on, why are they now why have we got the winged blood drop for here? Because I thought they only took that after they picked up Sanguinius because he was part of a tribe called the Blood.
Yeah.
And he was an angel.
Yeah, that's definitely a continuity error. But...
And the White Scars took the lightning bolt as like a representation for the scars they make, if I recall correctly. Because they were originally called the Star Hunters.
I think it was tribalistic.
Because the Legion was originally called the Star Hunters, if I recall.
Okay.
Or was it the Twilight Hunters?
Sounds right.
It was something Hunter. It was something
I can't
Hunters.
remember.
There's a lot of Space Marine chapters, so I wouldn't even be able to remember like one of their names, let alone previous names.
Yeah. But the most interesting thing, because we learn a bit about Astarte herself, the woman who pretty much started the Astartes project. She... It goes without saying this is a massive fucking spoiler, but hey. She tries to destroy what's left of the Space Marine project. Because since the Primarchs have all been abducted and scattered, she believes that without them, the Space Marines are going to go down the same route as the Thunder Warriors and start, effectively devolving, and she doesn't want that fate to happen.
Yeah.
Because she goes about, when she was working on the Thunder Warriors, the amount of times they would die on the operating table where they would like scream in agony as their organs burst inside them.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want that kind of thing to happen ever again.
No. And it didn't.
And then she ends up dying. Because of course.
Because of course. You fiddle with the Astartes and you're not the Emperor, I say that, call. But yeah, that's definitely interesting, and it's a really interesting stance to take, that the Astartes are doomed to the same fate as the Thunder Warriors, but it's funny that she may actually have been right, but for the wrong reasons. Granted, 11,000 years later, but we now have the next generation of the Primaris replacing, slowly, the Firstborn.
Yeah. Plus, it's just it also goes back to that. Probably the exact reason she was thinking about it all is just supposedly the Emperor's original plan, which was that like once the galaxies have been unified, the Space Marines they have no purpose. They need to be gotten rid of, like the Thunder Warriors were, and it's still, yeah. Sorry, I don't have a whole lot to comment on beyond that.
But yeah, what I found interesting in regards to this book, as the Provost Marshal was conducting her investigation, she was like having various interviews with Valdor, and these interviews were basically form the basis of several flashback scenes, like when he was doing the campaign in the north against that kingdom of Psykers. I've forgotten what nation was.
Give me a sec.
Essentially, he was describing how the Thunder Warriors, once they got into battle, they literally just killed everything in sight, regardless if it was soldiers, slaves, children. They would just kill everything. And not only that, they took pleasure in doing it. And that, it didn't necessarily disgust Valdor because he's, beyond emotions, but he did find it disconcerting.
And it wouldn't do for a conquering empire that was going to build an empire among the stars to be purging literally everything.
Yeah.
Ursh? They had powerful psychers.
I don't think it was Ursh. No. It was a northern kingdom. It's like a land of ice and snow.
There was the Morland Sen Confederacy in the Nordics. I
think that was it.
With the Battle of Morland Sen.
Yeah, that was that.
They were cannibals and forbidden genetic manipulators. And they were unwitting servants of chaos.
Yeah, overall, it's actually a really good book, even though I'm not too fond of the fact that the book itself is covered in fucking fabric. But that's just a personal preference thing. But otherwise, the book is really good. So when it comes out for general release in February, I believe it is, I strongly recommend for people to go get it.
Yeah, sounds good. Why did they cover it in fabric?
Fuck knows. I mean, with the Celestine book, it's to make it look like a tapestry. Fair enough.
Okay.
With the Lucas one, I still have no idea because it looks like a pair of jeans. It's covered in blue denim.
Okay,
I'm not even joking.
That is amazing. So now just go out in like double denim and read that book in a park somewhere, and everyone will think that the 90s have like the double 90s have returned.
Basically, just wearing a Canadian tuxedo. But literally, I'm looking at my limited edition collection here, right? You got the Fabius Bile limited edition. It looks like it's made of stitched pieces of flesh. You got the Lords of Silence one. It looks like a very ancient, rotting book.
Yeah.
You know, you got the Herisium Wars Resurrection one, which looks like it's made out of leather. And then you got Lucas, which looks like a pair of jeans.
Oh my god.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, hey, props for creativity, but wow, that sounds like that backfired. But
yeah.
Yeah. So someone out there probably likes to look at that book, and if so, then props to them.
I mean, the design on the book looks nice, and the vinyl spine is very nice, but the fabric covering the book is a pile of dog shit.
So you probably would have preferred if they went for something a bit safer. I
would have preferred if they just stuck with the typical vinyl / faux leather material they use for most of their limited editions. It probably would have been better. It'd probably last longer, to be honest.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, it's not as bad as the Cal Jericho, which was literally just covered in a removable sheet of plastic.
That doesn't sound nice.
No, and the paper quality in there is just terrible anyway. Look, it feels like sandpaper, but then again, it is Necromunda. It's probably intentional.
This paper has been recycled 3 different times. Well, then in one of those instances, it was a can of Coke.
To give you a bottom a smooth baby feel or something when you wipe. I don't know.
Interesting. It was use this book to wipe your bum. That's how much we care about. Oh, good God. Yeah.
So that quote, "I like the times is not too rough on the buttocks."
What?
I mean, hey, sometimes you ain't got a whole lot available to you, so you might as well use some newspaper. If it's good enough for fish and chips, but anyway, enough.
Just don't have your fish and chips out of the same paper.
Yeah, enough of what we do with our pages.
Yes. But anyway, speaking of pages, by the time the next episode rolls around, I would have gotten around to reading First Wall, so stay tuned.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to find time to read more than a chapter or so of this flipping Severina Rain novel.
Oh yeah, how was that going?
I've got through the first chapter, which was about 40 pages, and it's
quite beefy then. If one chapter's 40 pages.
Yeah, it's not a huge book, but it's just I think it's broken up into almost the chapters are quite long. In terms of chronology, they're quite long, and it definitely paints Rain very well, because she's a hard ass and a badass, but I'm not finding something that's making me go, I need to go grab it and read it right this second. I'm very intrigued by what they've set up, because it inserts you part way through a long campaign. So they've been fighting this cult. I think they're called the Sighted. This is all in the first chapter, so I don't consider this spoilers. They've been fighting this cult, the Sighted, for many worlds, and they've seen them do these same tactics of subverting the population, turning the Imperium's weapons against them over and over again. They're almost used to it by now. But this one escalates because they've got Bane Blades.
Oh, God.
Did they steal them from a typical Forge World or something?
I think they're on a Forge World this time. But so it sets up, they bring forward their armoured sentinel column to blast down the gates of the fortress with the las cannons, and it seems like they've done it a million times before. All of a sudden, Baneblade cannon, kaboom. There go the sentinels. End of chapter 1.
I'll tell you what else I've started reading. I'm about halfway through reading Eye of Ezekiel, which is actually surprisingly good, considering that most Dark Angel stuff I've generally read has been kind of pants. So this is actually a nice welcome change of pace, considering it's like Dark Angels and Vestroyan Firstborn against Orcs.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't go into details because I'm still reading through it, but it's actually pretty interesting so far. You've got a nice, likable set of characters like this one Vestroyan squad, which is basically all the freaks and weirdos of the regiment, essentially. And their captain's not actually a firstborn, he's actually a secondborn. And the reason he's a secondborn is because his older brother died. He got eaten by a dog. Yes.
So he was the oldest one left.
Yeah. And because of that, he's looked down upon by other Vestroyans, but he has worked his way up to the rank of captain, so he's good at his job. But it was actually quite a funny bit. He's having an argument with another captain, and the captain basically says in regards to, makes fun of his heritage. And so this captain goes, "Oh, but at least my mum's not my sister."
What?
And the other captain's like, takes a few moments to process it and then starts fighting right in front of the commissar.
Fucking hell.
And you know how that one ends.
Yep.
No, the commissar's like, "Come with me, please. Where are we going?"
Blam.
"The planetary governor wants to see you." "Why does he want to see me?" Goes and
He doesn't.
No, he does. No, he does. And this captain's like, "So why am I here, planetary governor?" It's like, "I know you've been spending a lot of time with your interpreter on this world." "Yes." "And I know you've gotten her pregnant." "Yes." "You know she's my daughter."
Oh, what?
Congratulations, son-in-law. You're gonna have to pay fucking child support.
Oh, and did I mention that this planetary governor is ex-militarum?
Ah.
So basically we've got a full-blown fucking soap opera storyline going in the same time where we've got Space Marines running around shooting orcs.
Good God. Alright, yeah, cool. Jesus Christ, though. Well, I guess...
this world that they're on in this book, about 80% of it is covered in fortresses, because about 10,000 years ago, a ship crash landed that had a Raven Guard, a Salamander, and an Orc in it. Sounds like a start for a bad joke.
Yeah.
And the Salamander basically just told the people who found him, prepare for war, and they literally spent 10,000 years just building a shit ton of fortresses.
And did war come?
Yeah, the Orcs invaded later.
Okay, cool.
And the only reason the Dark Angels have been brought in is because the Adeptus Mechanicus are basically called them in saying, like, you swore a vow to respond to this oath, and the Dark Angels are like, "Oh, for fuck's sake. Fine, we'll come help." Because this tech priest wants to protect the technology, because they have some unique technology that has incredibly advanced and powerful defensive weapons. And they just want to save the technology, obviously. But an interesting thing is, like, when he's talking to a tech marine, a tech marine he actually trained, he actually brings out a data slate and says, "Your brothers are keeping something from you. Really, what they're keeping? Here's a video footage of my Skitarii fighting against the Dark Mechanicum. Notice who's fighting alongside the Dark Mechanicum. Is that a Dark Angel in black armor? Yes, it is."
Uh-oh.
Oh my!
To be continued. Yeah, I'm actually really enjoying this book, which is quite surprising considering it's part of the Space Marine Battle series and most of them are shit. I mean, all you gotta do is look at Damnos.
Oh, good God.
Also, leave a comment down below if you actually enjoyed Damnos. I'll be interested to find out and to say that you're wrong.
I mean, I read it like 8 years ago, so it's been a long time since I read it. But I didn't hate it when I read it.
It was so
I read it at the time I was 14.
It's literally like the most boring book I've actually ever read. The only book that actually surpasses it in terms of being boring is Descent of Angels.
I knew that was coming. I
mean, there's a reason someone made that meme with the Horus Heresy Dark Angels novels and had, what's that? Oh God, Mr. Incredible saying, I'm not strong enough. I'm not strong enough to read the Dark Angels books again.
Though, hopefully, if you are a Dark Angels fan, the upcoming Lionel Johnson Primarch novel will be more up your street.
Speaking of which, since the standard version is coming out in February, this makes me think that the limited edition must be coming out in January. Because they said there are going to be no more limited edition Primarch novels this year. So it has to be in January. Because they always release it...
More than likely.
Because they always release it before, a month or two before, so...
Oh, I just forgot. I just remembered that we forgot to talk about what's going on with the Heresy going forward, gameplay-wise.
Oh, yeah. Next book is going to be featuring the Thramas Crusade.
Yep, it's called Crusade.
Ironically.
Is book 9. And they also show off everything that came out this year with all the Dreadnoughts and Sanguinius and stuff like that. Zone Mortalis got some more rules. So, they showed off the Angels Tiers Destroyer Squads with jump packs and grenade launchers, which was kind of interesting. There's no Horus Heresy Weekender in 2020, officially. Night Lords and Dark Angels are at the forefront, and 2020 will also see models released that tie in, while Siege of Terror continues from Black Library. Other than that, they don't really say anything.
But since the next book...
Wait, sorry, hang on. Salgua... Oh, that's an old thing. That's Age of Darkness. That's an old book. Never mind. It's just the Kurz-Johnson conversation on Salgualsa. I thought there was new information there. There isn't.
But since it is going to be Dark Angels and Night Lords, this means that we'll probably actually get rules finally for Lionel Johnson.
Finally.
Because he's like the last one, isn't he? Who needs rules?
Khan.
No, Khan had rules.
Oh yeah, he does have rules. He doesn't have a model.
It's just Lion who doesn't have rules left.
Hang on. Fulgrim, Pert, Khan, Russ, Dawn, Kurz, Sang, Ferrus, Gap, Angron, Gilliman, Mort, Magnus, Horus, Logar, Vulcan, Corax, and Aparis. Yeah, he's the only one.
So the question is, who's going to get a model first? Jagatai Khan or Lionel Johnson? Probably Lionel Johnson, because everyone forgets about Jagatai Khan.
Yeah, because people seem to forget about the White Scars a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. They tend to be very, fleeting thoughts.
Which is a pity. Like, I think having all of these legions together, a lot of them get a lot of attention, and as such, like, there's... Most of them are kind of fleshed out and very much well liked, but then there's a few cases where, like, something just doesn't really take that many people's fancy. I think that's something that the Iron Hands suffered for a long time. And
oh yeah,
I think, you see, I kind of want to say the Iron Warriors as well, but like I'd say that's more just the fact that people think Perturabo's kind of a man-child. Because I quite like the aesthetic of that Legion, as well as some of their unique options back during 4th edition. But, like...
To be honest, I think the Iron Warriors have been fleshed out surprisingly a high amount. Out of all the Traitor Legions, I think they've actually been fleshed out one of the most times. Because they've had, like, a shit ton of novels in regards to them.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, by comparison of, say, I don't know, like... I guess the Night Lords, they don't get a whole lot.
I mean, the Night Lords, their novel series. The Wordbearers had a novel series as well.
Yeah.
Black Legion is in the middle of having a novel series. The Emperor's Children, surprisingly, don't actually have that much love.
Yeah, now that I think about it,
unless you count the Fabius Spile stuff, but then again, he doesn't really count, even though he was of the Emperor's Children. But it doesn't really count, does it?
Was being the operative word.
Yeah, like I think a lot of that focus is put onto Fulgrim, and I guess to a certain extent Lucius, and less about the Legion in general.
I mean, Lucius has only had one novel.
Then again, I think...
Then again, Khan's only had one novel for himself as well.
Jagatai. Or Khan the Betrayer.
No, Khan the Betrayer.
Well, Khan the Betrayer...
Actually, it wasn't even a novel, it was a fucking novella.
Like, I think the thing with Khan and Lucius is that with Khan... because I know a lot of people that really like Khan, but like he's very much that stigma of he's got that stigma that's pointed to a lot of Khornate stuff in general, which is that like he's very straightforward, I suppose. Which is what people say about Khorne in general, like, oh, it's the Blood God, that means the World Eaters also are just violent and kill, and they're just real good at it. Whereas with Lucius presents something very, very interesting in that he's theoretically indestructible. So there's just basically been lots and lots of situations of people going, oh fuck, how do you get around the indestructibility? Like, what can we write up or think about that would prevent him being reborn?
Yeah, I still get comments almost every week on my Lucius lore video saying, oh, why don't you just do this to kill him?
Yeah, like stuff like that.
That reminds me, actually, in regards to Lucius, because someone actually submitted a homebrew video a while back for what could happen if Lucius was eaten by, a Hive Fleet, and they basically create a new one where he was the Hive Mind called Hive Fleet Banshee. And I thought that's actually really interesting.
That is very cool. I think what's interesting with Lucius as well is the champions of the Legion. So Typhus, Ahriman, Abaddon, Khan, and Lucius, in terms of who we see in 40k. They're all bigged up as sort of the leader of their Legion in the absence of the Primarch. Ahriman did it. Yeah. Khan did it. Typhus does it because Mortarion is Typhus's bleep in Nurgle's mind. Whereas Lucius is just an arrogant prick. And he was that arrogant that he went full psycho because Loken dared to catch him with a chainsword once. He went full on psychopath and sold out the Loyalist Defense on Isfahan 3 that was holding against about two Primarchs at once, and was holding, and he sold them out. And then he got his ass handed to him by Sharokin, at least once. Flip knows how many times he's died.
Because Sharokin had killed him the first time.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, he's supposed to be on the level of Khan and Ahriman, but he's not. He's just an arrogant, self-entitled bleep.
That reminds me as well, speaking of the novels, with that Khan novella, it seems to be setting up for a sequel in regards to the events of Scalathrax, where the World Eaters were shattered. But we haven't actually had that book yet, and it's surprising that for such a huge pivotal event, we've not actually seen a book basically novelizing it. I'm surprised they haven't actually done so yet. I mean, I don't know if it's just because John French has been busy with the Horus Heresy in that instead, but... Oh, was that? No, sorry. It was Anthony Reynolds, not John French, who did the first Khan book. So I don't know what he's been up to, but we really need a book where we actually detail the events of Scalathrax, I think.
I'm certainly not opposed to them doing that.
Especially since we already have a book setting it up. And can I just say, ow, my fucking jaw.
Ooh. You doing alright there, buddy?
Yeah, the good thing is that the numbness is gone.
Oh.
That's a problem. Right, I'm going to start doing a lot more talking than I have because I've sort of neglected my duty of stop Rem from killing his own mouth, and I'm going to do the talking now. We'll do some questions. Because we've been going for an hour and a half nearly, and we haven't got to questions. Right, okay, there's not a huge amount that I can find. So, let's have a look. Alright, since we've got Thunder, this is actually okay, I can read this. Who would win in a drunken bar fight? Ian Watson with a copy of Inquisitor? Dr. White with a shattered bottle of vodka that had food colouring in it? Or Nerina?
Okay, well, I've met two of these people. Unfortunately, one of them isn't Ian Watson, but that would be a dream. Okay, so I think, right, he's not here to contest this because he's currently on Scarlet Stream. Dr. White would be incredibly confident in being able to take on both. Yeah, like he'd be very confident in doing it, but he'd get his ass kicked because he'd miscalculate some things, right? I think Ian Watson would have a very passive play style. I think the way I would imagine this matchup is kind of like having Batman go up against Alien and Predator, in that Batman's just kind of trying to stay alive and occasionally throwing some shit in, which is how I kind of see Ian Watson in that battle. But
so you're saying that Ian Watson's Batman?
I have my own sense of justice.
I am the knight. But, fucking...
Pussycat.
I think in the end, Narina would win the fight, and she's welcome to say, no, I wouldn't, but... Nah, I could see it. I could see her. Thing is that you gave the other two weapons. I'm assuming Narina doesn't have one, and I still think she'd win.
Enough said.
Yep, I think Dr. White would probably get close to killing Narina, albeit reluctantly. Ian Watson would take advantage of that and manage to, like, at least knock him out. And then Narina would just finish the job on Ian Watson. Because Ian Watson does not know how to respond to an actual woman.
Okay, moving on.
Oh, that's harsh,
Right,
Ian.
where
I
was
don't
I?
mean that.
Right, right. Okay, next question. Okay, the Death Watch is made up of groups of kill teams. We know this. However, I was wondering, do Space Marine chapters sometimes utilise their own kill teams in the modern 40k universe? For example, Space Wolves hunting down Wolfen, Blood Angels tracking and killing those who fall into their curses, or just general Space Marine assassination missions? Because I know with the hunt for the Wolfen, the Space Wolves mobilised their entire chapter to go and do it.
You can point out, the Deathwing.
Yeah, and the Fallen in general. You've also got to consider the fact that the Space Marines have now got their snipers back in the Eliminators, so the Vanguard Chamber, that's bloody Sigmar. The Vanguard Astartes can do that job a lot better now.
Yeah.
Sorry, just
So,
trying to get some painkillers. Fuck.
that's fair. Right, okay. So I think the answer is yes. So, if the plan is to eventually replace all non-Primaris Marines, both in lore and on the tabletop, which it may or may not be, we don't know, what do you make of the fact that Grey Knights still have no Primaris?
My assumption.
I did a
would just
video
be-
on it.
I'd assume that just gradually the Grey Knights would get Primaris eventually. That's my thinking.
Yeah, I would probably suspect that. Right, let's see. Conrad Kerr's question. Is it possible that the Corona Nox contains a spirit stone, and if so, is it possible that Kerr's soul is trapped in it?
I mean, it's pretty much confirmed to be a spirit stone. So, and it's pretty much
And for the second
it's pretty
part?
much confirmed to have his spirit in it, considering he died wearing it.
I do not like the idea of Comrade Kurz being able to become a Wraith Knight.
Again,
That's
I did a video on this ages ago.
Right, okay, so this is a case of my comments don't watch your videos. That is... Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Sorry. Would... no. Okay, I'll go with it. In Warhammer 40k parlance, if the records lasted that long, would Robocop be considered a kind of proto-dreadnought? Almost killed in the line of duty, made into a cyborg warrior to fight the good fight until permanently died, or some sort of AdMech ideal, as so little of the original remains in the machine?
I like the line of thinking about being a proto dreadnought, but I think the AdMech line of thinking, or even just straight up being a Space Marine, is probably a closer comparison.
I thought he'd just be someone who, had a bunch of bionics fitted.
Yeah. That's why I'm thinking Space Marine, because there's a lot of augmentation and just straight up lost a limb, get a new one.
Not even necessarily a Space Marine, because you could have normal guys with bionic arms, like members of the Imperial Guard, for example, who have bionic limbs.
Yeah,
in the War of the Beast, the Provost Marshal there had like a bionic arm and 2 bionic legs, if I recall correctly. So he's just the guy in charge of the Arbites then.
But did they make him stronger? Because I think actually, no, in Robocop they don't make him massively stronger. It just makes him more efficient, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you're probably closer in that about it being either AdMech or just straight up being a very unfortunate guardsman.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, I already know the answer to this, but I will read it out. Has a Space Marine or a Custodian ever left their chapter or the 10,000 because they believe that their brothers or companions have either lost their way or put their ideals before the Imperium.
Yeah, I would have thought so. There's been civil wars between Space Marine chapters, and I can totally see that happening.
Yeah, I definitely for Space Marines. I don't think it's ever happened with the Custodes, although they do argue, not to
the
that
only
extent.
time I know of a custodian leaving the order is if they've gone to an age where their reflexes are starting to slow, so they leave to become one of the eyes of the Emperor.
Yeah, but that's not an ideological disagreement. That's an I physically can't do my job anymore.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, I mean, not quite canon, but if Warhammer 40k Space Marine had kept going on, people argued from the leaked stuff about what the Space Marine trilogy was going to be, that's basically what Titus did. Or possibly even fucking Leandros. But yeah.
Fuck Leandros.
Yeah, I mean, fuck Leandros, but...
Also, pour one out for Sidonus.
I miss my boy. So many grizzled old cool guys have died in Relic 40k games that it makes me upset.
And he was voiced by Beowulf.
Fucking they had a seriously cool lineup of VAs for Space Marine. Mark Strong as Captain Titus, which he was in fucking Shazam. And he's also
the voice of Eisenhorn as well.
Yeah, Kingsman too. He's also if you ever go, this is more of a UK thing, but if you ever go to View Cinema and you get that voice that's talking to you at the beginning about the movie telling you to turn off your phone, that's Mark Strong.
Huh. Well,
yeah, so Captain Titus is saying, hey, turn off your fucking phones.
Turn off your phone, you heretic.
Lesson. I thought he was... Yeah, he is no heretic. Doesn't mean you are. Right. Okay, where was I? No, lost it. Got it. No, lost it. Shit, hang on. I had a question and then there we go. Right. I was reading the Damocles Anthology, and Shadow Sun mentioned that one of the Hive cities had the equivalent population of her Sept world, that being Tau, as I pronounce it. With that in mind, does the Tau Empire have more humans in it than Tau, since they've incorporated Hive worlds?
I mean, that doesn't seem impossible, especially if you want to go by a historical example, which is the British Empire, when they took in India, conquered India, and effectively had the British Raj. That meant that, in theory, the most spoken language in the British Empire was not English, but was in fact Indian. So, I can see it. As for how much that would be represented, I think that would come to question.
And then we gave us an uprising against the Tau Empire. It's like, no, what have we done?
Yeah. I mean,
So we're working for the Imperium all along, bitches.
Oh, God. Oh, no, you're making me... that was I think it's a misquoted thing, which was an idea from, the 1970s, 80s or something like that, about... No, it wouldn't be that late. It'd be a lot more recent. About a Chinese invasion plan of Russia, which is you send 100,000 men to the Russian border, have them all surrender, and the Chinese have won. Because they basically have a bunch of soldiers now as prisoners of war, which, discounts the possibility that you could just shoot the prisoners, but... I could. That sounds like something crazy enough that I could see an Imperial commander trying to do that, possibly with a penal legion, or just with a ridiculous amount of conscripted forces.
Creed.
But they couldn't wait that long to pull the trigger.
That's the issue. But, yeah.
Right. There's a question here that says that the Tau Empire is kind of like Hot Fuzz, because low crime rate, high accident rate.
And the greater good.
The greater good.
And that. Okay.
Does this mean that Farsight's Nick Clegg? No, is it Nick Clegg?
What the fuck? Why?
Not Nick Clegg. Oh god, what's the name?
Are you thinking of Simon Pegg?
That's it, yeah. I don't know what's a Nick Clegg.
Nick Clegg is a very different person, but I get why you said it. Oh my god.
Clegg, Peg, sounds the same.
Yeah. No, just because they're also yellow doesn't mean... Alright.
Carry on.
Yeah, we briefly lost Michael. Hopefully he is back now with less robotic voices.
Beep boop.
No, you still sound
Damn
super robot.
Super robot lifeform transformers. And fuck my jaw!
Oh my god. Ooh. I feel like this is going to be wrapped up soon if that's going to keep happening.
Seriously, like, my tooth just pretty much exploded in my mouth.
Ugh.
It was not fun. It really wasn't fun.
I've had nightmares about that kind of thing.
Yeah, all because I ended up, like, biting down a bit of food that had, like, a pebble in it or something, and it just made my tooth go, no, bang! Ah.
Ooh. That is not fun.
No, it really isn't. And because with the anesthetics, like, worn off... Ow!
Yeah, ow. Well, hey, pain is weakness leaving the body, as they say. So consider that.
Yeah,
Your teeth will now become stronger. They are now that the weak tooth has been crushed.
What is going on here?
You will now be able to, one, get a sick bionic tooth, which is definitely a thing and not something I just made up.
So I just ended up being Jaws from James Bond.
What?
Oh my god. Well, I mean... yeah, that's one option. Yeah. Seems like we're getting some connection issues, so I have no idea what that's going to mean for the rest of the episode.
So there's a combination of connection issues and my body going, no, please stop, die, no.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to laugh, otherwise I'd cry.
Fair. I know a friend of mine who has a similar thing that's been ongoing for the last couple of years that kind of follows the same logic.
So, anyone in the comments who has
this.
ever had intensive dental surgery, you'll know what I'm going through right now, and you know it's not very
My
fun.
connection?
Fucking hell.
Ooh.
Also, are you right there, Michael? You keep dropping in and out.
Yes, because all I could hear was...
Oh no, that's just how we've
all I
been
could
talking.
hear.
We've decided to take the Banjo-Kazooie route and just have our words like line up at the bottom.
Well, I've now fixed the issue. Reboot Discord twice, unplug the mic, plug it back in again, turn off the Wi-Fi, turn it back on again, and now I can hear you properly. Thunder.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I just want to talk about how much my jaw hurts.
Fair enough. So let's see if I can find another question because we've got. Okay, where am I?
You're there.
So, just how much of the galaxy is actually really tied up in the overall story of 40k? Since GW pitches 40k as the whole Milky Way galaxy, and yet, roughly 1 million planets is not much of a galaxy in about 400 billion stars. The sheer scale of the galaxy versus what we're told reliably makes it seem humanity really has nothing to do or say against the situation. Everyone's on the bullet train the heck with free tickets. Like
They don't
else.
occupy every planet in a system.
But if, let's say, they seem to correlate stars and planets, which is not the same thing because we have 1 star in Sol and 8 or 9 planets, depending on who you ask. So, okay, 400 billion stars, which may or may not be accurate. I can't remember. I'm not an astronomer. But let's say you hold 1 million systems. That's 1 in 400,000 systems that the Imperium holds.
But similarly, they could be spread out throughout the cosmos. So...
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just interesting that that we pitch as that the entire galaxy is engulfed in war, when in reality, chaos might hold a couple of million. The Great Rift cuts off probably about, let's say, 1 billion, maybe 100 billion for a quarter of the galaxy. But in the grand scheme, depending on how many systems are held by one empire or another, not that much of the galaxy is actually involved on that idea. Whether that's actually true or not, I'm not sure. I don't know the exact numbers of the Imperium's holdings or the number of
Well,
systems.
the whole idea is
way.
that they don't know. It's become such a lumbering such a lumbering behemoth of an empire that so many of the specifics are lost. But it does open up something that I've always felt about 40k that I think is kind of important, which is the idea that just because there is only war in the 41st millennium does not mean that war is a constant everywhere all the time. That you do have planets that are not only independent, but you also have planets that are under control of some of the major empires that don't see a major conflict break out for hundreds of years. Much in the same way that even though a lot of our own history as the human race is full of wars, that doesn't mean that a country is at war every century. There's lots and lots of breaks in between where things are very, very peaceful in the homeland, or that it might be so engulfed in some other kind of crisis or event going on that, sure, protection is important. There's still a military, there's still rebellions or riots or that kind of thing, but doesn't fucking mean every nation's fighting one another all the goddamn time. And I think with 40k, despite it being this hyper-intensive setting of war being something that the entire economy and the entire society is built around, that doesn't mean that there's not entire lives of people could go by praising the Emperor and worshipping him and that kind of thing, where they don't have to put that prayers towards protect me from the aliens that are invading my planet, or protect me in the battle that I'm about to fight. If anything, the concept of there being time in between these conflicts for individual planets makes it more grounded in the idea that people would actively go through this faith. That, hey, the Emperor has protected our planet for almost an entire millennium because we're in the inner sphere and we've not had to deal with, big outbreaks, and those that have likely have been suppressed by the Inquisition. And, hey, that means something's got to be good about the Imperium. I'm not going to question that. Praise be. Time to eat my nutrient paste and have 7 more kids before I die.
Yeah, what he said. I can't really argue with any of that. And I think the only constant in the lives of the Imperials is the tithe. It is death and taxes. Yep. It's still death and taxes. So there may be a Munitorum tithe every generation, but that will be all they'll see of war is the training of their regiments for the Munitorum.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I guess when you think about 40k as well as, I mean, some people sort of look at what it was trying to parody and what it was trying to comment on back in the 1980s. I guess you could argue that some of that is possibly even more apparent when you think more about the setting. And I gotta be honest, as far as the idea that the Imperium is an empire of a million worlds and going, wait, that's not that many planets, I don't feel like that's intentional. I'm not gonna claim it is. But it probably gives more credence to the idea. There's so many times where 40k does something intentionally to be OTT, and then actually it turns out becomes something that's more grounded or more practical than other sci-fi settings that either do way more or way less. Yeah, I don't know. Rambling, of course, but I think, I don't know. I even from a young age, I've appreciated 40k massively as a setting, and the more that, even when things are brought into question about its setting, it just makes me appreciate more where they went with it, how much they've done with it, and what it's been going for. Because I'm a big fan of quite a few different sci-fi things. Ever since I was little, I've loved Star Wars, and growing up I got more into Halo, Mass Effect, and a bunch of other stuff. But 40k has been a very unique science fantasy setting that has always had that I've had a lot of love for, even though I have distanced myself a lot from some of its greater details. You guys, you both run lore channels, and you've covered a lot about the setting. it completely dwarfs my knowledge of the setting, which I think I made a comment several podcasts ago where I said I think my knowledge of 40k is still kind of stuck in 4th edition and has never really moved out from there. I still love 40k even if I know so little about it, and to some degree I feel like
It's better that way.
Yeah, the sort of maybe I don't think it's to say it's better that way, because that implies that people who actually get super into the lore and look into it a lot and make it a big part of their like online personas or careers or that kind of thing. No, be passionate about what you love and look at these things, dig into this stuff, encourage the fandom and let it grow. That's such a good thing.
Yeah, and I think that
I'm just kind of glad
finish.
that to a degree, even though I've been a VA for 40k parodies for years and years, I'm happy to be more of a casual consumer of it, because it gives me a different perspective from lots of my friends and colleagues in the VA space. So,
yeah, and as one of those people who, I'm not going to say I know the lore inside out and backwards, that's Remleiz, but that extra knowledge of the lore and being able to share that is great. But people can then, we put it out there and people can then pick and choose the information that's relevant to them and that they're interested in and consume that aspect. And if they get bored of that, then they can go and find something else. And the beauty of the hobby is you can look at it on the surface and say, cool, tabletop miniature game with fancy things that look weird. Cool, I like that. Or you can go all the way in and dive into the understandings of the Horus Heresy and Primarchs and all the other stuff, and you'll still find just as engaging a narrative buried under the gameplay mechanics. And you can dive as deep into the lore as you want without ever feeling like either you know too much or you know too little. You know what you know. The problem comes when things get either retconned or things get updated. Because I'm still a little bit salty that the day I published my Ultramarines Legion's lore video, they revealed the return of Guilliman. Yeah. And I was super sad. Because I just talked about Guilliman being dead and almost dead, trapped in the Temple of Correction, maybe healing, maybe not. And then suddenly Guilliman was back the day later. But when things get retconned, if you don't have that deep understanding, then you'll have a misconception of what something's like. For example, attitudes towards the Necrons. Most people know about that, but someone who's got a very casual surface level look at the Necrons might not know that. Or which Chaos God came first? Huge misconception about Nurgle and Khorne. Rem's addressed it a million times. We know the answer now, but a lot of people have that misconception, and you'd have to dive really, really deep to find it in some cases. And when these updates happen, we can put the information out there, but if it's on a topic that is of a service level interest to people, then they won't go and look at it because it doesn't interest them, and so they'll keep that misconception. Or they'll dive into it, find, oh, they changed that. Why did they change that? And then either we're wrong, because no, that's not the case. And we'll have to explain the retcon. Or they'll be like, no, I much prefer the old version, or yes, I prefer the new version. It's being in the middle is a nice place to be for what you need to know, but when things change, it can be harder to adapt to them, because you either, if you know nothing, you don't care. If you know everything, it's just changing one thing in a list of 40 billion.
Yep. 40k is a big, sprawling mass of information and stories where naturally...
And contrasting, conflicting timelines.
Which you got to take that as you will. I'm kind of thinking again. I partly thought about this while we were talking about Warhammer Fantasy, but it also applies to 40k, which was stuff about the 13th Black Crusade, where I think initially it was written as like the 13th Black Crusade, big thing that was going to be happening at 999 Millennium 41. Will Horus succeed? Probably not. And then I think there was a tabletop event based on it, and the Chaos side won, and GW had to go.
Yes, they did.
No, they don't. Yeah, but then the third and final time,
and retcon it. Yeah,
with Fall of Cadia, part of Gathering Storm. Yeah. they actually went ahead and did it. And I guess some people could argue that they could say, like, oh, like, I prefer to think about 40k back during 5th or 6th edition, and think about it from the timeline where the 13th Black Crusade never succeeded and Primaris were never revealed. But if anything, I think what's actually more underutilized is playing the game or looking at the game stories at a point that is neither the Horus Heresy or 999 Millennium 41. Because it turns out that the 41st millennium is 1,000 years, and you can look at all the bits in it that weren't 999 and base your stories and your games and stuff like that in that time. But yeah, hey ho, that's just the way it is, and I think you're totally right about being able to present people lore and just let them like have a look at it, and just the frustration of when these things get changed, but maybe the lore has to change in order to keep the lifeblood kind of going and let new writers do new things with the game as Codex has come out, and boy fucking howdy, I would have no idea how to handle 40k, so I can't criticize. Yeah.
No, we're no good either. We just tell the story and then maybe come up with some ideas based on what they tell us.
Yeah. 40k, love it to pieces, but man, it needs a lot of support under its shoulders because it is a heavy boy.
Yeah. Yep. Right, I think we've got time for one more question. And we'll wrap it up with something new, and we'll wrap it up with some Primaris. So, who do you all think will be the Space Wolves who get primarized? I want to say it would be Ragnar, based on character. I'm quoting here. I would say Ragnar, based on character, but his character and lore are pretty old. So maybe Logan. Or maybe Lucas. He's got one heart, why not? Also, do you think GW will Primaris or update all the old characters, or just quietly retire them? I'm still new, but the Ultramarines, the Blood Angels, the Dark Angels, the Space Wolves, they seem to have a lot of named characters, and I'm wondering if the advancing of the lore might lead to a culling of models. Like, they don't need a Primaris model, because they're dead. So there's a lot to unpack there. First off, who's the Primaris Space Wolf or Space Wolves going to be?
It's going to be Ragnar. Just because his model's been exactly the same since 1993. More than anything else.
That's a good reason for that. I wouldn't really know.
I feel like they'll probably primarize Njal because they did it with Mephiston and they've done it with Tigurius. So for the sake of consistency,
possibly. I don't think it'll be Logan because Logan still is a bit iffy about them. But Ragnar definitely, I feel. Lucas, I don't think they will, because if he gets another heart back, it's like, okay, what's going to happen with the stasis bomb?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And as to the second question, I'll be quick so I can allow Rem to hopefully heal himself up a bit. Will GW Primaris all the old characters, or will some of them just be let out to pasture? They won't
Primarify everyone. I mean, they definitely won't do it with Tycho, considering Tycho is, canonically dead. Even though he still has rules you can play as him, but he died during Armageddon 3.
Yep. I think, for me, I'd like to see... I don't know. Because I love some of the characters and I don't want to see them go. But how do you update Samael?
How do you update Gabriel Seth,
because...
who doesn't like Primaris?
Which is a very valid point. There's some characters... either have to die so that everyone becomes Primaris, or have to be sort of the staunch last bastion of not crossing the Rubicon, who are slowly replaced by, okay, there's a new chief librarian now, because all the chapters have moved to this Primaris stance, so the new chief librarian of the Dark Angels, because Ezekiel didn't want to do it, is a Primaris, eventually. Obviously, not right now, because Dark Angels, Primaris, Inner Circle, messy. Anyway, it's going to be interesting. I can't see everyone getting replaced, but I don't know what you do with everyone else.
All I know is that one person who definitely deserved to become a Primaris most certainly did, and it sadly is not in any of the written books. But my boy, my motherfucking boy, Diomedes from the Blood Ravens became a fucking Primaris and a chaplain for some reason, but he did it. He fucking did it. That's actually a thing. I wish I was making that up. Oh my god. Dawn of War 3.
He was actually the first person to do it, wasn't he?
Ravens, yeah.
No, he's the first person to be upgraded into a Primaris, because he was revealed before Carl got upgraded.
Which is such a... Now that I think about it, what the fuck? Like, I want to believe that was Relic, like, just going, fuck it, make him a Primaris, without even consulting GW first. But, like... Oh my god. Okay, you know what? Dawn of War 3, I don't care. I'm gonna speak for Relic. Don't work for them, don't have any authority, but just you listen. Dawn of War 3, not canon. Never happened. I am Hercules Dragonblade, and this has been a game theory. We do not talk about that, because...
We don't talk about that.
No, I made a mistake of looking at his Star Trek is Fascist video, and he got pretty much every single fucking thing wrong.
Yeah.
Because he seems to think that Starfleet and the Federation are the exact same thing.
They're not. Anyway, back to that bombshell that has just exploded while we're just waiting for the shrapnel to pierce our flesh.
Yes. Sorry, I apologise. Tooth pain, yes. I'm
doing, and on that bombshell,
I know,
and to wrap up.
That's what I'm trying to get to. It just hurts a lot. So anyway, thank you for joining us for this episode of Adeptus Podcastus, and thank you very much for ThunderPsyker for joining us this episode.
Oh, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
And again, I apologise for the pain.
And I apologise for having wonky internet that messed us up for 5 minutes, though you probably won't notice this in the edit.
And I apologise
for not getting Dawn of War 2 done.
Just... yeah. Well, that you could put it towards that. You could put it towards anything.
Right, the 2-week countdown starts in.
Thank you very much for watching, and 3, 2, 1. So until next time, this has been Remleiz from 40k Theories.
This has been Tactica Imperialis.
And I'm here.
And he'll be doing the video soon. Bye bye.
Alright, let's go!